I just have a belief that there's always something that we can do. Most of the time when we fail, it's because we give up. We give up way too soon. You have the idea. The best thing that you can do is get started. Done is better than perfect. We can perfect ourselves into a 5-year business plan, but you really just need to get started.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are changing the way that business happens in cities like Miami, Florida. And my name is Tyler Kelly. I'm joined by my co-host, Miss Leanne Buchanan.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are super excited because we have with us a very special guest, Miss Ernisha Randolph. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Ernisha. And we know each other, and I'm very excited
Yes.
for this conversation because I think this is going to mark one of the first times we've really sat down and talked. So later on in the conversation, we're going to talk more about your what. But for the time being, I want to introduce the guest to who you are. And so you are the CEO of Sweet Butter Hospitality Group, which does so many different things that I want you to start off by just walking us through what is Sweet Butter, how does it manifest, because you got a restaurant, you have product brands, you have entertainment, you're really kind of like your own lifestyle, event production, everything amazing food. So talk to us about what it is.
Lifestyle. That is exactly what it is. So Sweet Butter Hospitality Group. Actually, the hospitality group came after the catering company. The catering company was birthed first, Juanita's Kitchen, which is named after my grandmother, Juanita. After a really, really bad period in our lives, my mom and my great-grandmother, which is her mother, passed 2 months apart from each other. My grandmother had been working for the county for over 40 years and cooking for everyone for free, the neighbors, the church members, and everybody else. So at that time, I was in college for business, and I'm like, listen, Grandma, we're not doing this. You know, she was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm going to run away. You know, I've been taking care of my daughter with cancer and my mom with Alzheimer's, and I just don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, well, you've been cooking, so how about we start a catering business? And that really like birthed life back into my grandmother. I actually had never seen her so happy. Even in her most happiest days. So the catering company came about, and 2 years later we got our first government contract, and then the rest was history. We took off in business, and eventually the customers were like, listen, how about we get more access to your food? You know, we need a restaurant. I was totally not interested in opening a restaurant. But after a push from some of my mentors, Brian and some others, we launched the restaurant. And I'm like, okay, a lot of different things going on at once. Let's promote the restaurant first via Sweet Butter PopUp Dinner shows. And then that's how the hospitality group was formed.
So you, I think, are known in this community and perhaps more broadly for being very innovative in your approach.
Wow.
Because, you know, I want you to talk about the pop-up dinners, because that is completely innovative and really different. A lot of challenges that food and beverage entrepreneurs face are around how do they navigate this push towards your brick and mortar. And brick and mortar is expensive.
Very.
It's a huge capital outlay. So talk to us about kind of the strategic approach that led you to launching different kind of revenue sources, different product centers with your brand.
Right. So the products as well as the pop-up dinner shows were all ways of us kind of just making sure that we were able to kind of control our own future. I was very, very much against opening a restaurant, because I'm like, you know, with a brick and mortar, not only is it's tons of dollars, you know, going into it, but then, you know, you just got to be able to keep up with the staffing and so many things that I didn't have to worry about with catering. I didn't turn the gas on until I knew I had a job, and I didn't have to pay staff until I knew, and we knew exactly how many people we were cooking for and etc. So the pop-up dinner shows came about as a way for us to promote the upcoming restaurant, as well as to save up money to open the brick and mortar. Because at that time, banks were not lending, their lending practices were not what they are beginning to become now. And even though I was a member of the chamber, and they were kind of working with the SBA to give them a push to make sure that they were lending to smaller businesses, it still wasn't what it should have been. So I'm like, listen, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna, just bootstrap it and do what we gotta do. So and it worked. The pop-up dinner shows, we ended up selling out 17 shows, over 1,000 people each. The first shows shocked us because we expected 75 people to show up, and it was a line down the street in Overtown before Overtown was what it's becoming now. So it worked, and we ended up growing a really large audience base, mailing list, and we saved up the money to open up our restaurant in the next year.
You're making me hungry. So, like, you talk to me about like what sets you apart, differentiates you in terms of just food, because I'm a foodie. So, talk to me. With
food, with the pop-up dinner shows, before launching it, my husband Anthony and we decided to tour the U.S. because I'm African American. Here in Miami, it's a melting pot, and we have just about every culture you can think of, but we don't have a strong enough presence as far as soul food or Southern food, Southern American food. So I'm like, everyone thinks that soul food is mac and cheese, collard greens, and fried chicken, and that's it. But it's so much more. So in New Orleans, we have the Gullah Geechee culture and that Creole cuisine, where you would eat gumbo and po' boys and a lot of things that people in Miami, when I mention it, they're like, what's that? I never heard of that before. And then over in Carolina, which is where my grandfather is from, in New Orleans, it's the Creole culture. And then in Carolina is the Gullah Geechee culture. And that food is totally different than, a lot of that low country food from Georgia. And then the seafood boil in Jacksonville is different than the seafood boil in New Orleans. And the barbecue in Texas is different than Tennessee. And all of it is different than the vinegar-based barbecue in Carolina. So I'm like, how can I just educate people and utilize these pop-up dinner shows to expose them to these different food cultures that's all here in this one country. So each pop-up dinner show, we had a different variety, as well as the history from that area. And that's what we were like, well, whichever one they know least about, that will be the first restaurant that we open. And that's how Shuckin' and Jivin' came about with the New Orleans culture.
Okay. Yeah, now that sounds good. And that's one of my experiences in Miami, is that you really can't find good soul food.
Right.
Even though we're about as far south as you can go. Right. But now I know where to go.
So I want to talk a little bit about how you extrapolate these business insights, because I'm just sitting here listening and wonder to what you're saying. And you know me, I read a lot. You probably get my blogs. I'm always thinking and reading and writing. And, we talk a lot about lean startup. We talk a lot about market validation. We talk a lot about kind of customer insights, and use this fancy, B school terminology to do exactly what you did. Right. So talk to us about kind of the specific business insights that you were able to extrapolate from having the dinners, and from testing your market, and from doing these food tours as a way of diversifying and creating a better brand position.
Absolutely. And honestly, I learned so much. I learned so much from hosting those pop-up dinner shows, because not only had I not had a restaurant previously, but I definitely needed that information and that data that we gathered from those guests. We sent out emails afterwards, just asking for the guest experience, what we could do better, where we went wrong. And we use that information to improve each new pop-up. And that's actually how we also were able to create the upcoming restaurant as well. And it's funny that you said that. I'm like the most layman term person that, is here in the business world. And that's something I pride myself in. I'm like, I don't use all the fancy terminologies and things. And I kind of can help break it down in an understandable way. So it was funny that you just said that about me.
So, Ernisha, I want to switch gears maybe a little bit away from the business to who you are as a person. And I've known you, I think you're one of the first people that I met when I launched Venture Cafe. We're talking about Black professionals and how we could do more to create spaces for them to connect. And so I'm curious to understand, what's your why for all of this? I know, started with Juanita's Kitchen, with your grandmother, but like, what's the why behind this? Why do you do this work other than loving to cook and serve and eat?
I think so. Besides loving to cook, I love people and I love serving. My grandmother and my aunt tell me a story about when I was younger, and they said that I would always serve people, which I do remember. I would, you're coming to my restaurant, and I would take their orders and everything. And my dad was like, okay, you're not going to be a waitress when you get older, because that's what I said. I'm going to be a waitress when I get older. You're not going to be a waitress. You can own the restaurant, but you can't be a waitress. So I've always had a passion for serving people. When I was 19 years old, I also started a nonprofit organization, 501c3, called Young Ladies of Integrity. And that was my way of giving back, because I was a teen mom. I saw lots of young girls looking up to me, and I'm like, yeah, I know that, this isn't the way to go. So how about I kind of mentor them and steer them into the right direction? So that passion for people has always been there. And also my love for my family. So when we started Juanita's Kitchen, the wheels kind of just started turning, and like, okay, what can I do for my family to make sure that everyone is good, everyone will eat? And it started with the catering company, and then I'm like, well, we'll do the restaurant, but I'll train Shawnee and Tayon, which is my younger brother and my daughter. I'll train them to run the restaurant. And then another business that you mentioned that came out of the Sweet Butter Hospitality Group is the Candy Girls, which is the dessert company that has products in local restaurants and supermarkets and convenience stores here. So I'll create the recipe, and I'll teach my sister how to run this business. Everything that I know, she'll know, and I'll set it up. My husband, he goes and makes the deals with the different restaurants or the convenience stores, and that'll be her business. And I kind of just followed that pattern. I take my time with each business, build the models, build the systems and the processes to make sure that everything is running just like if you were to work at McDonald's. If you're 15 years old or if you're 50, you know what to do, because everything is A, B, C, and D. You don't have to worry about the burgers tasting different at this location than it tastes at another location. And I take my time with each business just to kind of, build those systems to make sure that it doesn't matter if it's my 10-year-old son. Anybody will be able to run this business. We'll have our operations manuals, and everything will be just elementary, and anybody will be able to do it. So,
and what I love about your approach is it's really one of collective impact. You're looking at, how do you improve the lot in life for your immediate family, but also your community by being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. And I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, which was around access to capital, and how when you first started things, it wasn't it's not perfect now, but it definitely wasn't what it is now in terms of, being a Black female entrepreneur trying to get investment.
Right.
In the startup space, often people talk about friends and family round, but not everybody has friends and family to put $200,000, $100,000 into launching their business. So just talk to us about maybe some money mindset insights that you've learned from this journey of access to capital, now having more capital and being able to deploy that into expanding your net worth.
Right. So, you're right, Leanne. This whole topic surrounding access to capital is something that, we can go all day talking about it. From in the beginning, me being a very proud young person, like I don't want loans, and so because I did not prepare myself and build in that direction, when I realized, oh my God, I'm actually going to need loans if I want to grow how I need to grow. Then it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? And then I went through the process, did everything I needed to do, had, a close to perfect score, almost 800 score, and then getting denied for the access that we needed after we worked. I mean, we worked religiously to make sure that we were ready for the capital. So it's like, now I'm just finding myself back in a position where it's like, what do we do? Where do we go from here, and how do we do it? I'm like the queen of bootstrapping and just making things happen, and I think a lot of Black people are, but especially women, it's like we just make it happen. But there does come a time when you're like, okay, I need, if I'm gonna grow and go where I know that I need to go and fast, then I'm gonna, definitely need to make some changes. So with or without the capital, I knew that, there were some things that I needed to do, and we just did it and made it happen. I just, gathered up my family, and I'm like, whatever we have to do to raise this capital, that's what we're going to do. So thankfully, years later, I was able to get some access, and it was a very, very non-traditional way of getting the money. But yeah, that's my story. And like I said, I can go all day. I don't even know how far to go, but I'll leave it there.
Well, tell me, like, for somebody that might be listening or watching that has an idea to do something like you did, what's the best piece of advice you can give to that person?
In which way to do what?
In terms of just like they have an idea for a business and they haven't taken that step yet. What do you tell them?
So I tell people now, so in the beginning of Corona, a lot of people started locally that I knew started losing their jobs, losing their businesses, or both, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs here. And I'm like, listen, they're asking for help. They saw that I ended up getting a contract in the middle of Corona where we were able to, thankfully, be doing well, and be stable. And they're like, listen, share your contract with me, or, share some information or something. So I'm like, okay, how about this? I can dedicate time to assisting a few entrepreneurs, and, just to kind of make sure that, you all are aware of how to pivot when it's necessary. A lot of people didn't even know what the definition of pivot was. Like, what do you mean pivot? What do I do? And I just have a belief that there's always something that we can do. Most of the time when we fail, it's because we give up. We give up way too soon. And I know when you're going through it, it seems impossible, and it's like, yeah, that's easy for you to say. But I really do believe that, we can make things happen. So I took these entrepreneurs, and some of them one of them were a nurse who had just lost her job. She had a young baby, 3 months old, and she wasn't supposed to be working on the COVID floor. And they put her on the floor, and anyhow, she ended up losing her job. So she's like, I need to be an entrepreneur, and I don't know, what to do. I know I've been playing around with this business with my husband for some time, and my advice is, let's just get started. Let's, you have the idea. The best thing that you can do is get started. Done is better than perfect. Mm-hmm. We can perfect ourselves into a 5-year business plan, but you really just need to get started. So I worked with these entrepreneurs. 2 weeks later, one of the entrepreneurs had made $40,000. And I mean, she was literally coming from nothing, her transportation company had stopped running because schools closed down. So, and then a couple of the other entrepreneurs, they received really, really good results. So now I'm going on my second round of helping people, because that's my why, that's my passion. Everything that I do is, just to improve other people, my family, my friends, my community. So yeah, that's my advice, to get started, to do it, and then to connect with people who can help you to make it happen. Your team is everything. Your mentors are everything. And if you connect with the right organization or people, then you can, get some assistance to get led into the right direction.
Okay. It's that time.
Yeah, because I talk too much.
Time for the lightning round.
Oh, that time.
It's not over yet. Oh, this is a good one. What does success look like to you?
Ooh, success for me. A healthy and wealthy family. It looks like my friends and associates also being healthy and wealthy and having access to the capital, the resources, and the same opportunities that myself and others have access to.
Mm-hmm. What are you working towards that you could use help with?
Ooh. So when I started to mentor these entrepreneurs, I got an idea to start raising funds for, and especially once things started building up in the community after the George Floyd protests. I started working towards a fund for entrepreneurs to be able to reinvest into their businesses, after they have went through either an accelerator program or something to, kind of just ensure their success or better prepare them for success. I think that they should be awarded with the capital that they need to grow. So I just started working towards that.
Donate somewhere. Donate somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What challenge do you want to overcome?
Probably OCD. I have it really bad, and that's the reason why I preach all the time that done is better than perfect and those things, because I will keep a project going for so long while I perfect. And my friend Fabiola, she's also my PR director, and she's like, sometimes you just got to get your phone and do the video and just put it out there. You don't have to do a big setup, and you and Anthony, you guys want everything to be perfect. And I'm like, but it has to be professional. So that's what I would definitely want to overcome.
What would you do if you were not afraid?
Oh,
you can answer this one honestly, because I see you like editing yourself right there.
If I were not afraid, there's a lot I would probably do if I weren't afraid. I do a lot of things for other people, and I push and promote other people in a lot of areas. And it's like, when it comes down to me, it's I back up and I'm like, that sense of I'm not good enough, steps in. So I probably would finally do that final push and move forward with the reality show that they've been trying to recruit us for forever.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for you to say it. I was like, is she gonna say it, or do I need to pull it out of her? So what random act of kindness could you perform right now?
For anybody, like just random, there's a lot of things that I could perform. A random act of kindness. I'm very random with my kindness, so I'll say I could probably donate a new wardrobe to a family. I'm not sure.
There you go.
If you have to think about it, it's not random, right?
Right. Right.
Ernisha, how can people get in touch with you on social media, the restaurants, like the websites, all that good stuff?
So for on social media, the restaurant is at Weshuckin, WESHUCKIN, and my personal is at missmrs.sweetbutter. And I believe on Facebook it's probably the same. And anyone can also email me at ernisha.r@gmail.com.
this has been fun.
Yes.
And thank you so much. I feel like I've learned a lot from this conversation. And it's always good to sit down and talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, both of you.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say